Hello, and welcome to the first episode of BSP Cast. This is a vehicle to chat with some local Boston musicians before they take the digital stage on Boston Stream Party's Instagram. These performances have been taking place at 8 p.m. Eastern every Saturday, and this week, the Only Humans will be taking over the Boston Stream Party Instagram and playing a set. So we sat down with Tim Howd of the Only Humans to hear a little bit about how the band became to be. Hope you'll join us.
Because I was just gonna say the Marshall Stack thing. Like, I know you guys both work in the sound, in live sound, and I'd love to. I have an opinion. I'd love to know your guys' opinion of when you're like playing, like when you're like if you're doing like a PA's lounge level show or something, and you see the dude rolling in like the stack. Like, what? How's that feel for sound guys? Because as a person who's got to wait to set his stuff up, I've got thoughts on that.
Yeah, usually I think that person's probably a dickhead. Or like trying to show something.
Yeah, my thought is it's typically, not always. There are some musicians where like not necessary is not the right word, but there are some musicians where like that's the right fit for them. But I want to say 9 out of 10 times it's someone who is trying to compensate for something.
Yeah,
it's like the big truck syndrome of the music world. It's like, look at my Marshall stack. Have you seen my Marshall stack? Did you know that when I tour, I actually have 2 Marshall stacks? You're like, cool, man. Like, how big are the tires in your truck? Like,
yeah, exactly. No, the reason, because that's happened to me, some of the time when we've played, we'll do anything like if it's a longer show, for sure. If we're playing for the night, my friend has this really nice Fender Blues amp that he'll bring. But if we're doing like a 4-band set where everyone's playing 30 minutes, it's like we'll bring a Roland Cube in like a pedal board, because a Roland Cube can do a fine, clean sound to run pedals through, right? And people are like checking out the amp, and they're like, oh, this is kind of weak. Like you're a guitarist and you're playing through a Roland Cube, and it's like, you're a guitarist and you think that anyone in this loud ass bar is going to notice guitar tone?
Right. Well,
I use a Vox Valvetronics because I had an AC30, which is my preferred amp. I love an AC30. Crank that thing up all the way, and you get the best warm like fuzz. But I don't have one right now because I'm in a tiny little apartment. So I have like a Vox Valvetronics 20-watt thing. Even that does everything I need. Like, I put a mic in front of it, and I can record any sound I want almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the other things with that kind of thing is like being respectful of people's time too, right? Because if you're playing for half an hour and it takes you a half an hour to set up, like there's something wrong there. Like it should not take you as long to set up as it does to play. Like there at no level until you are in, I don't know, an arena. Like if you're in an arena and like obviously like, oh, in an arena it takes a team of 100 people like 5 hours to set up for you because you're like Kiss or something, right? Like sure, but like if you're playing 15 20-minute opener slot at the Paradise, and you can take longer than that, but if you can't get it done in 15 or 20 minutes, like maybe you got a little too much gear.
So I've already told this story on a podcast, so I don't feel bad telling it again. Also, just so you know, we are recording. We're probably not going to use any of this because until I get my wine. But
I disagree. Fine. I loved all of that.
Okay, we just record the whole thing and edit it after.
You can use whatever I want. I one question though.
Yeah.
I don't have to do anything different, right, with my sound or whatever. You're capturing it, you're recording it, and you've got what you need. All right,
you are good to go. Cool. Yeah. So I was going to say, so we had a situation that's kind of similar. Was I worked at a venue in Western Mass that it was super old. It was from Prohibition, like the 1800s. So
where was it? What's the venue?
The name of it is Pearl Street, if you're familiar.
Yes, I love Pearl Street. I went to UMass Amherst. I saw some of my favorite shows on Pearl Street.
Both of us went to UMass Amherst, and I was the house manager for the whole time I was at UMass.
No way. What year did you graduate?
So I was supposed to be 08. I ended up being spring 09. So half semester extra.
Oh, wow.
And I was 2014. So
no way. That is so cool. I love Pearl Street.
Yeah. When, awesome. How about yourself? When were you?
Sean, you and me were actually there at the same time. I
That's
graduated in
too funny.
2010.
Okay.
I was in the theater department.
Okay. I worked at the radio station at WMUA down in the bottom of the campus center.
Oh, did you know Sarah Brennan?
Oh my god, I know that name.
She did like one of the radio shows, like maybe one of like the super late ones.
Yeah, I
Um,
definitely know that name. Like I probably saw it. Like it sounds like something I read. Like I probably saw it on a schedule or something.
yeah. I played on her radio show a few times.
That's too
That's crazy.
funny.
And that's funny because usually when it's UMass, you're like, do you
Yeah.
know this person? It's like, no, I don't know that person.
Right.
But in this case, it's like, well, it's WMUA. So
It's pretty close. Um, Mike Doty, who's one of my favorite singers of all time. I saw him there at least once.
at Pearl Street,
Yeah.
that's small for him too.
Yeah. It was kind of like he's kind of had a weird career of being like super big places and then like super small places, and like depending on the tour he might do like something very intimate or whatever. So it was like I caught him in one of the like the smaller tour.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know. I don't even want to call it like a dip. I think it was like intentional with what he was doing. But he played there a year after I saw him. I heard about him opening for the Bare Naked Ladies at the Mullins Center.
Oh, figure. Wow. The Bare Naked Ladies at the Mullen Center would be a blast. I would
Yeah.
have so much fun at that show.
It was the last year when Stephen Page was still in the Bare Naked Ladies.
Mm.
And I will make there are two hills I will die on. Two adjacent hills I will die on. One is the Bare Naked Ladies with Stephen Page is one of the best bands of all time. The other is the Bare Naked Ladies could have stopped after Stephen Page left the band.
Honestly, I didn't even know they were still going. So there you go.
Yeah, it's they're I think they're doing fine. They're just like they're just kind of like writing sort of like adult pop,
Matchbox 20 type stuff. But
yeah,
they
kind
had
of
a
like,
couple albums that were like, I mean, those came out probably when I was in high school. They're big albums, maybe when I was a little bit younger, because I'm a little bit younger than you guys. And I remember like I know every word probably to multiple albums by the Bare Naked Ladies.
yeah, and they as far as songwriters go, they're no joke. I mean, they became kind of a joke with 1 week, of course, but when you actually start listening to their other songs, their non radio songs, even some of the radio songs like Old Apartment.
That's what I was just gonna say. Old Apartment is like a perfect pop song. Like it's a
Right.
perfectly written pop song.
But like they've got like the song Break Your Heart, which is told from the perspective of a woman, which I love the confidence like that they were like, we're not gonna pretend to not be singing as a woman just because it's like some masculine thing. They're
Who
just
gives
like
a shit? Exactly.
that was the part. And it has a beautiful premise of a woman who is staying with a person purely because she doesn't want to hurt his feelings, and it's so good.
Oof.
I'm gonna send it to you guys after, because if you haven't heard the Rock Spectacle live album version of it, it is probably one of the best recordings in music history. I'm so sorry because you were telling a story.
No, this is what this podcast is for. This is perfect. But the story, hopefully this isn't a band that you like, because I'll feel bad if it is. It was a band that I was indifferent about, and after the end of the show, I hated them. So, Two Flights of Stairs, I was the load-in guy. I didn't like sign contracts or read contracts. I just showed up when they told me. So it was like me and say 3 guys were supposed to do the load-in for All American Rejects who were performing that night. And they were performing upstairs, up 2 flights of stairs. So they showed up with 2 18-wheelers and 2 grand pianos that had to be carried by hand up 2 flights of stairs that were built in 1800. So,
Jesus Christ.
and there was 4 of us, that's impossible. Like you can't do that. So we got like everyone was like quitting basically. It's like, well, I don't know what we're gonna do, so I quit. We ended up talking to the All American Rejects guy who like showed me their rider essentially. That was like there will be 10 people there for load-in. Go figures. The guy who runs that place is a little bit sketchy. So I was like, all right, doesn't surprise me that he lied to them. And then we went over and ended up having to get the owner, and pretty much me and the owner physically just did everything ourselves. It sucked all night. And then at the end of the show, which is like, this isn't the All American Rejects fault at all, but I still hold it against them. But at the end of the show, they want to do an autograph signing. And I was like the only security guy. So I had to like sit with the singer, like while tons and tons of high school girls came to get autographs and shit. And I just have never been so openly miserable at work in my life. I was just like sitting next to this dude, like, fuck this. And he was like, man, are you okay? It's like, I'm fine. You know, like my arms are broken from carrying your pianos up the stairs. You guys shot confetti all over the place that I have to clean up. Half my crew quit on me, but that poor guy.
That sucks. And to be fair, I don't blame you for not liking them because of that. I will sympathize with them a tiny bit for saying we want 10 people.
Oh yeah,
this is part of the deal.
Oh, it wasn't their fault at all.
It 100% does not fall on them at all. But just due to the situation I was in, I can't separate the two.
True, but at the same time, Pearl Street, I can't understand. I don't know what their tour looked like, but usually you don't swap from Madison Square Garden to Pearl Street on your way to North Station or TD Garden.
Yep. The one cool thing about Pearl Street, which I'm sure you noticed while you were there, is that it did get, because of where it is, it did get those kind of weird bands that were like, fuck it, I'll do one more show in between New York City and Boston. Oh, we can go out to Western Mass and play like a smaller club where it's not a major city. Like I saw Dropkick Murphys there with 600 people right before, it was right after The Departed came out. So they went from playing there to playing the Garden. The next show was at the Garden.
Oh, okay. So maybe there were some who made that stop. I was gonna say it makes
Western
sense
Mass is weird.
It makes sense to go from there to like the House of Blues, certainly. Yeah. Because it is like there's a size difference, but it's not like exactly that, because it's like Western Mass, and it's like we'll stop here real quick. But the question's still in my head, because I'm trying to think of like Bruce Springsteen, Roy Bittan might ask for 2 grand pianos. I've never actually seen him use 2 grand pianos. So, All American Rejects at Pearl Street, I think you have earned a little bit of even though your experience was colored by the night, maybe less than the band. I think you earned a little bit, like, because I don't know exactly how like professional level stuff works, but I've called mulligans for the exact reason that Sean said, where it's like you get to the situation and you're like, yeah, there's going to be a lot to set up for what we're delivering here. It's going to take me more time to set up than I'll be playing for. I don't need to do that. So
what can I get away with?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I play with an acoustic guitar, so anytime I can, I'm just like, you got a PA, I'll bring my DI. Boom, that's one thing out of the way.
Done.
It's funny you say that. Me and Sean deal with that, I think, more in this digital world since we started the company Boston Stream Party than we ever did before. Well, not than we ever did before, but in a different way, because a lot of people come into streaming shows thinking they need a full festival stage set up with stage plot and stuff. And we're like, no, what we're doing here is kind of the opposite of that. We're scaling everything down and making it easier for people. But we have some people who just, they don't know what to expect, which is why, like, when we met with you, we're very thorough of trying to tell people what to expect. But they come in and they're like, do I need to get a sound guy? Do I need to be at a studio? Do I need to rent out a place? And we're like, you don't have to do any of that. If you just want to set up a phone and acoustic guitar, you're fine. And that is terrifying to most musicians. That is the most terrifying thing they can hear. But then they listen to some of the other performances and go, oh, he's right. That does work.
Right. The answer is always you can do those things if you want to, because as we always say, as anybody who has been in one of our, might as well call them lectures at this point, will attest to, we always say, like, when it comes to creative stuff, like, that's the musicians. The musicians are the creative ones. So when it comes to that kind of things, like, we want you to be able to be as creative as you want. So if that means like getting a sound guy and being in a studio and like the whole thing, like, cool, but you 100% don't need to, and it will still sound great if it's just like half the band hanging out, playing some tunes, maybe acoustic. We love to encourage like people who are like, oh, well, we don't really play acoustic. I'm like, well, that's a great way to draw people in, is that you never play acoustic shows. What better way to have a unique experience than to be like, this is the only acoustic show we've ever done or ever will do, because we're like a live rockin' band, and so if you want to hear us play acoustic for the only time ever, come hang out, right?
And that's where we run into the one issue is with really loud, like punk bands, like really loud rocking electric bands that can't quite scale back. It's hard because then you basically do have to do a full setup, go through a computer, use a bunch of software to get it to where it needs to go. And we do this all the time. It's not a big deal, but the reward for the work a lot of times wouldn't be there if it weren't necessary for the specific band. Like if it's a band that can't perform otherwise, it's worth it. But you put a lot of work in and your sound is like the same as an acoustic with an iPhone or whatever.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, one of my original missions with my band and my music in general was I want to be able to scale to any situation. I mean, obviously, I would hope most musicians do this, where they try to write a good song regardless of what the arrangement is. And you can kind of tell that with like a lot of really popular songs, even if they are like fully arranged. Like, I don't know, like Leonard Cohen's got a lot of songs that can that lend themselves to different arrangements because this foundation is really good, right?
Elliott Smith is like that too.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And that's what I tried to go for, because even situations like this, or like any like live streams that I've done or whatever, or even like, I don't know, like a coffee shop thing, right? My band, I think we will go up to 6 people with another lead guitarist, a keyboardist, full drum set and everything. We will go that big. But if it's like a coffee shop thing, it's not like no one in the band doesn't want to do it, but it's kind of like, what is the you know, the effort versus payoff, right? What are we going to do? Or is this something that maybe it would be better if I just pick up my guitar, take Neil, and then it also allows like a different type of show, right? Because one of the other things about those tight setups, the double Marshall stacks and everything, is their commitment to their equipment. You guys can have that rhyme. The commitment to the setup is so thorough that it makes their set inflexible. One of the best shows I've ever played in my life was I played I'm gonna get the name wrong. Is it the Burrow or the Burren in
the Burren? Yep. I love that room.
It is the Burren, right? I got asked kind of like at the last minute by a local band called 3 at Home, who's this amazing duo.
I've heard of 3 at Home before, definitely.
Yep. Yeah, they're like I guess the immediate comparison is like of Monsters and Men. It's like a kind of like a folk pop alternative duo, sort of. They're amazing, and they invited me to play this show. And it was like a night where, like, because it was like a last minute thing, the main members of my band are Neil, who plays violin, and Renee, who plays the bass, and sometimes she switches over to violin. They do a double violin thing. And so they're pretty much the ones who I'm just like, we got a show tomorrow, accidentally, we're doing this, and they like hop in the car and we go. It would just happen to be a night where like Neil couldn't get out of work or something, and Renee had her friend from out of town was visiting for the first time in 20 years, whatever. So I was like, okay, I'll go play this one by myself. And it was one of the most fun shows I ever had, because since
the rest of those guys suck. No.
No, it was, I'm not, so disclaimer, I don't know if it was fun for anyone else, but it was fun for me. Because with the kind of removing elements, I was actually able to, I looked at my list of songs. I've written a lot of songs and recorded not a lot of them. So our band obviously focuses on what we've recorded and what we're going to be recording soon. I focus on whatever I feel like at the time. So I like got to play like all these songs I never get to play because my band's never practiced them. And even in the green room that day, like 20 minutes before I played, I wrote a song for David Berman, who had just passed away, and I played that as the first song. And you know, there were like some flubs or whatever, but it was cool because I was like, because it's neat to kind of flex into the situation, right?
Right.
And while you know I we haven't reached a level, I don't think, of like wanting to be of being like this like super like uh like refined act of like an A to B and like you're gonna see the show, even though we haven't gotten there. We're not at that scale yet, so I'm okay with that, because when bands try to be in that scale before they are ready, their shows can kind of sometimes look awkward, like they're trying to do a thing before they're ready to do it.
Yeah. Sean and I were really lucky. We both got to work a festival called Eau Claire Music Festival that was
Oh
in
yeah, I've heard of
Wisconsin.
that.
And a big part of Eau Claire's mission was spontaneity and collaboration. So they viewed it as like, they called it a camp out, was what they referred to it as. So it would be all these different bands that were amazing. You know, Phil Cook, Bon Iver.
I was gonna say that's Bon Iver's festival,
Yeah, it
right?
was
Isn't
Bon
it?
Iver's festival. It's his
Yeah.
hometown. So all these amazing bands that, you know, he brought in, and they would do whatever they wanted. Like, there wasn't real set times or anything. And even on the set list that like we had as workers, they weren't like real band names. So you would get like half of band A and half of band B who would hang out the night before and have some drinks and be like, "Do you want to play a set tomorrow?" And they would get up there and they would play some Tom Petty covers, and then one of one band song, one of another band song. Like, it was really cool to see it. I've never seen anything like it in my life. It did present some like kind of awkward moments of meeting people. It's cool and it's awkward at the same time, because some of these people had maybe one or two interactions before they were on stage together, and then they had to kind of feel out that vibe. So from the beginning of the set to the end of the set sometimes was like a whole different show. Once they got feeling each other, it was like, this is really cool. So I think sometimes that spontaneity is huge in that type of thing. For some bands, some acts don't, you know, run with it as well, I think.
Yeah, like I mean, bringing up, I don't know why this is the second time I've referenced Michael Jackson, because he's not really someone I listen to, but you expect Michael Jackson's show to be A to B exactly the same, like that. Like that's like a different kind of thing. So the spontaneity there's not really room for it, and that's okay because it's like a different, like the pop shows is a different type of thing.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, it's more programmed, right?
Right.
Like it's the idea is to have a very consistent, you know, like level, like a high level of consistent, you know, quality, you know, storyboard of a show kind of thing. And so you kind of just hit those moments, and you know, it's obviously not exactly the same every time, but like that's kind of the goal, is to have it be almost like, I hate to call it a product, but like it's kind of true, right? You want
Right.
you want it to be a consistent product, so that like no matter what city you're in, there's no off night, because you can't
Right.
afford an off night.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, is like when you get that big, if that's your act, I mean, like again, going back to like some like Bruce Springsteen, I think he does maintain a degree of spontaneity in his set. But that's a little different because the E Street Band's like the best band in the world, so he can be like, hey, I know we haven't played this song in 20 years, but can you guys play it? And they can, right?
Yeah.
But like definitely you're right about like the product version of it, and it's like, you know, Taylor Swift or Beyonce or somebody like that. I always think about, I come from theater, it's like Hamilton's got to be the same every night, right?
Right.
Phantom of the Opera has to be the same every night, and
Right.
there are moments when you have moments where they're different because someone's cell phone goes off or something happens and there's a reaction from the actors in character. We see those things, you can't replicate them. That's amazing. But
Right.
but for like, even from like a music show, like I don't, I it's just like a different type of act than from what I want to be. Like I don't see myself existing in like an A to B show.
So you mentioned that you studied theater and you come from a theater background. Let's get what was Tim before The Only Humans? Like, how did you get into the music? How did you meet your band members? Like, when did you start playing? That type of stuff.
Yeah, you want to know this story? I've told it a bunch, so it's kind of it's definitely not rote because it's hilarious every time, but I can get into it. Okay.
Yeah.
Learned the guitar because I wanted to be like Dave Matthews. No, sorry. One step back. Learned the guitar because I wanted to be like David Bowie. I get to brag that the first concert I ever saw was David Bowie. You know,
That's
everyone else has to say like Shaggy or the Backstreet Boys or whatever, because you know,
Disturbed.
Yeah, see, exactly. And it's like, and honestly, you know, not trying to criticize those bands or anything, but some
It's
of those
different
bands,
level of experience.
some of those
Certainly.
bands have a quality of they are what I am into right now at my young age versus what I think I'll be into forever.
Right.
I saw David Bowie when I was in high school for the reality tour, his last tour. Woke up the next day and was like, hey, I want to do that for the rest of my life. I'd always had an interest in performing. You know, I really, really love theater. I really love movies and everything. So I always wanted to be some kind of performer. And I thought I wanted to be an actor. But I saw David Bowie and I started learning guitar. I actually, the cool thing, the thing I like about Dave Matthews guitars playing specifically, because I had a bunch of friends who were into him. I didn't really listen to him, but I had my friends who were like super into jam bands, and they would talk about Dave Matthews and why he's the greatest thing ever. I watched some videos, and this was around when I was learning guitar. And I know Dave Matthews catches a lot of flack for a lot of different things about like lameness or whatever, but that dude can play some cool rhythms while he is singing, right? And that was a goal of mine. I want to be able to play cool rhythms while I was playing guitar. So for like the longest time, I could play every Dave Matthews song on guitar because yeah, oh yeah. So every at the time. So disclaimer.
Still.
Disclaimer.
How old were you? How long ago was this?
This was 2000. I started playing when I was 17, so 2004-ish. So it was of course before Big Whiskey and the Grugux King. And
yeah, it's still like 4 albums or something, right?
Yeah. I can, you know, I've still got some of those chops, not all of them, but like I can still do a little of and then like the and you know, as I got more into songwriting, a lot of I was like some of this is not, it wasn't unnecessary, but it was a little unnecessary. Like he's got a song called Tripping Billies, and the guitar part is this. The only thing you can hear on the record is him doing this. And it's like, you can just play power chords.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was what like got me into my guitar playing. And I had my best friend at the time was also he was a guitar player, and we had a lot of the same music tastes. So I had a group of 3 friends, and we got into our heads. We wanted to be a musical act like Tenacious D. I went away. We graduated high school. I went away to college, and I decided I wanted to be a theater major because theater was what took my interest in high school. It was just like, it was the only time I felt activated and like this is cool. I like being on stage in front of people. So I became a theater major, and I always played guitar. I always played the guitar throughout college. We started a band one summer during college called Jordash. So me and my 2 friends from home started a band called Jordash because we had one of our members, his name was Jordan, and he had me and the other member, Scott, independently. Before me and Scott met, we were both friends with Jordan, and we independently gave Jordan the nickname Jordash. So because we discovered we had each called him that, we're like, let's make that our band name. So Jordan sang, me and Scott played guitar. So for a while, we wrote a bunch of songs, trying to be like a Tenacious D, like funny joke band, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how from the area you guys are, but have you heard of, in Plastown, New Hampshire, the Sad Cafe?
I haven't heard of the specific venue, but I'm familiar with Plastow.
Yeah. So when you're from northern Massachusetts in the lower New Hampshire area, it was the Sad Cafe. Like that was the thing. It was the place where all the bands played, and everybody made fun of bands who played at the Sad Cafe. But in reality, it was like I realized later on, like, it was like, oh, this band's playing at the Sad Cafe. And then I realized every band played at the Sad Cafe.
That was where you played, yeah.
And the people making fun of them were just bullies.
They just weren't playing.
Right.
Like,
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I will never play the Sad Cafe. Okay, well, you're not playing anywhere, so.
Right. That's exactly what it was. So we did that for a little while. So then a few things happened. Graduated college, and I did acting for a little while, where I would like go to auditions, and I would, I worked at Market Basket at the time, so I just had a job, went to auditions, and I was also a stage electrician for a while too. So I would swap between like going to the stage calls and auditions.
If you're ever looking to get back into that, when I'm not doing this, I often need a good stage electrician. So,
like lighting.
Yeah, like lighting.
Oh, we should talk.
We'll talk later.
Yeah, because that's the thing, and actually, it doesn't factor into the music story. But I went to school to be an actor, but because it's UMass, it's a BA, not a BFA. And
Yep.
if it's a BA, it means you got to do everything.
Yep.
And there were a lot of actors who were like very much like, I came to act. I will never lift a wrench. And I wasn't too much like that, but a little bit. I was a little bit like, what's the deal with this? And then I started to do it. I had a blast. So I actually, by the time I graduated, I was master electrician on all of our shows. It was so much fun. I had a blast. It was great. It just became for me more of a thing where it was like the regular calls were kind of I just couldn't make them work around what Market Basket wanted me to do, which is unfortunate because I actually love that way more.
It's like, can we get you to act like you know how to use a wrench? How about that?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have a C wrench?
There was like one of the guys from my department was like the standard theater tech guy that you'd expect. And he's a super friendly guy and everything, but it like you could almost feel the chewing tobacco, and he was like when I started to get into like some of the tech stuff, he's like, man, I love turning actors into techies. And I'm like, you haven't done that. This is a credit. And also you're reporting to me on this show, so I don't know what you're bragging about. But
small victories.
Yeah, right, exactly. So graduated college. I was acting for a while. I actually started doing stand-up for a little bit. The cool thing about stand-up comedy is you don't have any gear. You just go and they will hopefully have a microphone. And so I was, bouncing around between different interests. And at the time, Jordache we were still like writing songs, right? So two things happened in the song in 2011. And one of them was that my family got into a really bad car accident. And what the result was that I actually had to stay home more just to like help my parents around. It was me and my parents come back from actually my little sister's graduation at UMass. We got into a car accident. So I stayed home more. I opted to not go to auditions. And so that's one thing that happened. And while that was happening, I was like, obviously I want to still do something creative. Part of what I did with my degree was I was also a playwright. My senior thesis, I wrote a play. And I kind of slowly started to learn that I was super into the writing. I liked acting, but I discovered I liked doing my words maybe more than I liked doing someone else's words. Sure. So all that stuff coalesced into me being at home and being like, well, maybe the creative thing I'll do while I'm kind of at home is I'll write music. That'll be something. And Jordache, we're still going strong. If I ever get brave, I'll share with you the I just found it the other day. I found a little intro piece I made on my own with a lot of pitch shifting and flanging called The Curse of the Jordache Zombies. It was very again, it was very Tenacious D.
I just want to throw out there that at your show this coming Saturday, you might want to throw some of that out there. That'd be awesome.
play the Curse of the Jordache Zombies.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
I'll actually make a note to bring it back to tie it into this. Let me just, I actually have a note in my planner because I do everything by planners because I'm a nerd.
Same way.
Both of us are as well.
It's digital, but it's all here.
Yeah,
Between my
exactly.
calendar, my to-do list, and my notepad and everything else. It's
Yep. And quick detour on that. Everybody talks about like the guy who recorded our first album from the Soul Shop, Elio De Luca, is like one of my favorite people in the universe. And he always used to make fun of how big of nerds we were because when we'd be recording, would show up at 10, like would show up at 9:45 with like a binder full of plans, and he's like, and you meet so many bands at this level who are like who embrace the rock and roll lifestyle before they have maybe necessarily earned it. But then you read like about Kurt Cobain, and it's like that dude had a checklist of what checks they're going to do on their van and checking the oil and washing the clothes. Like he had a checklist that they did at every stop.
He gave himself like mental issues because he was so over the top with what their kind of thing was. Like that's part of the reason why he was a little bit wild.
Right.
So organized that it was like a problem when things got out of control.
So when you see a guy like that on stage, you think that persona bleeds into real life. And it did a little bit, like you said, with the wildness, but it certainly didn't bleed into his organizational skills. So the other thing that happened that summer, as I started to write music for the Jordache band, was I went to a Bright Eyes show with one of my college roommates, who's now a doctor, who's also now the guitarist in our band. And we went to see Bright Eyes in Guilford, New Hampshire, and we were opening for Bright Eyes was a band called the Mountain Goats. And I mean, I hate to admit this out loud because everyone's gonna be like, oh yeah, Only Humans are just a Mountain Goats ripoff. If you listen to Only Humans and you think about the Mountain Goats, you're gonna be like, oh, nasally guy. Okay, I got it. Yeah, nasally guy who does this on a guitar a lot, right? So I try to shy away from that comparison, but you guys are just, I feel that wine bottle bleeding into me a little bit, even though I'm not sure it's arrived yet. So
it hasn't yet. It will soon, supposedly.
It's amazing.
So I feel comfortable sharing this with you guys. But anyway, so never heard of the Mountain Goats. And my friend who invited me to the Bright Eyes show, we were both Bright Eyes fans, and he's like, but I'm really going because I want to see the Mountain Goats.
So he knew the Mountain Goats.
He knew the Mountain Goats.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And we even talked about, he's like, if Conor Oberst, who's the lead singer of Bright Eyes, if Conor Oberst rocked by, he's like, I think that's so cool to meet him.
Right.
But if John Darnielle of the Mountain Goats walked by, he's like, I wouldn't know what to say. And I didn't realize he had this like kind of like affinity for the Mountain Goats. Maybe he'd mentioned them before. So I did the iTunes thing. I popped open iTunes and I like listened to the 30-second clips. And I'm not sure if are either of you familiar with the Mountain Goats?
Yeah.
Yeah. So originally his recordings were done on a boombox. And so you just hear buzzy guitar and that's it. So I got through like 20 seconds. I was like, this guy's nothing special. Then because I didn't listen, then we get to the show, we watch him play. And it was like what I told you how it felt when I first saw David Bowie. That's only happened to me, I think, 3 times in my life. When I saw David Bowie, when I saw the musical Hadestown on Broadway, and when I saw the Mountain Goats that day in 2011. And it was just this kind of like awakening in me of something I didn't know could be done with words, with music, with delivery. Because that guy obviously is a super nasally voice. But I'd never seen somebody sing with the conviction that he sang with. And his words were beautiful. And I always come back to this one moment. Everyone's heard this story a million times. I haven't said it on a podcast before though, so don't worry about that. Exclusive. No one's gonna flip it off at this point. But he has a song called Old College Try, where the line leading up to the chorus is talking about like all these things going bad in the relationship. And he says, the way those eyes I've always loved illuminate this place, which is a super cliche setup, right? The way your eyes light up the room, right? Great.
Right.
And then they hit the chorus chords and they go into the words fall to complete the metaphor. The way those eyes have always loved illuminate this place like a trash can fire in a prison cell, like the searchlights in the parking lots of hell. And I just gave myself shivers again. I got shivers, and I just looked at Kyle and I was like, do they really, does this man write these words on purpose?
Writing.
Like, did
That's
he do
poetry.
that?
Right.
And
So-
there were several of those moments throughout the show, and that was like the moment for me where I was like, I don't want to be joke band anymore. I want to write songs that, you know, I will never say I want to write songs that matter. That's silly. I want to write songs because I want to write songs, but I want to write songs that are more expressing what is happening in here, rather than you know, the Curse of the Jordache Zombies, which is actually recording wise pretty good, I gotta say, for what I knew back then. So that's
I listened to some of my old. I had a Tascam 4-track when I was also like 12, and I pulled out some of the cassettes recently, and part of me was very embarrassed, obviously, but part of me was like, wow, I think I might have known better what I was doing recording wise then than I do now.
I literally just listened to the Curse of the Jordache Zombies the other week, and I was like, I swear to God, because I've been recording this album, and I was like, what mic? How did I position this on my acoustic guitar? Because this sounds exactly like the sound I want, and I can't get that out of my guitar. So what have I done?
How does this cassette sound better than my MacBook? This doesn't make sense, but it's true.
Right, exactly.
So it's kind of funny, and if I'm mixing you up a little bit with somebody else, then forgive me, because sometimes a couple of the bands will get jumbled in my head. But I'm pretty sure when we first reached out to you, it was after we reached out to Gish. Is that
Yes,
correct?
correct. Yep.
Okay. So so we reached out to Gish, and Gish was like, oh, I'm like not really playing live shows yet, but like there's this other group that's awesome that you need to check out. I'm like, all right. So I was the one who was having the conversation with Gish at the time. So I was like, all right, like I'll go check out this other band. And so I listened to a couple songs or whatever, and I was like, all right, like that's, yeah, I can get into this or whatever. And I was talking to Mike at the time, because we were you know, we're on Zoom like we are now, but we were trying to fill a schedule that's, we'll just kind of bang it out sometimes, where we're just like, all right, well, like over the next couple of nights or whatever, we're just gonna fill the April schedule or whatever, right? And he's like, all right, well, have you given them a listen yet? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, what's their, like, what do they sound like? What's their kind of like, what's their vibe or whatever? And I was like, have you ever heard the Mountain Goats before? And I was like, it's not like you sounded like the Mountain Goats. It just gave you the same vibe, the same feeling. You know what I mean? It was like, and it took me a second. It took me a second where I was like, there's like 2 or 3 bands up in my head that I'm like, it's somewhere in this zone. And he's like, and he's like, well, what is it? And I was like, I think I feel like it's kind of Mountain Goats-esque a little bit. And he's like, all right, well, let me give it a listen then. And that was, you know, and that's where it spiraled from there to like, all right, we got to get these guys on here. But
yeah. And to be fair, like I work, you know, basically my only concern is I don't want to be derivative, right? I have no qualms admitting that they're a big influence on me. But one of the main influences was that I do have a nasally voice, and I hate my voice most of the time. And I realized that maybe the move for me wasn't to try to make my voice sound like something it will never sound like, because it is literally my voice. Like there's no physical way I can sound like Andrea Bocelli, right?
You got to pull the Bob Dylan move and say, this is what I got to work with. Let me fucking work with it.
Yeah,
well, it's the same thing with
one of the best performers of all time. Not that great of a singer, in my personal opinion.
But so it's the same thing as, like, it's funny that it was a Mountain Goats Bright Eyes show, because Connor Oberst has a very distinct voice that a lot of people don't necessarily care for, or don't think that he's necessarily a good singer. But like, he is one of those singers that I feel like if you listen to the music and you get involved with the emotion behind the music, like there's every single note that he sings, like, makes me want to cry. Right? It can be a happy song. You can do the bowl of oranges, right? Like it's kind of a what's the this is the first day of my life.
First day of my life, yeah.
And you're like, this is like a really happy song. And you're like, you know what though? Just tearing up a little bit. It's just the emotion that's in his voice. But it's the same thing, right? Where I'm gonna go, this is my voice. Let me embrace my voice. I'm gonna do everything I can to make it sound as not as good. That's good is a weird term, but like make it fit, right? Make it
Right.
the music
Yeah.
fit my voice. Let me embrace the parts of my voice that I think fit the music that I'm trying to do, and just go full bore with it and have the confidence to pull it off.
That really
Right.
brings up, in my mind, that really brings up the Hold Steady, who are a totally different type of music, but their singer has a very distinct voice. And if they didn't write the music they wrote, I don't know how well his voice would come across. But they write such good music, and it's written to his voice that it just works so well. Whereas, like, if I heard him singing acoustic, I don't know what I would think of it, you know?
I will say this. Holds up, because he actually did release a bunch of solo records.
Really?
And I actually got into his name's Craig Finn. If you haven't heard of him, I actually got into his solo records because of like a Pitchfork review or something that said this guy's writing the best songs around. I got into one of his first solo records. Then I got into the Hold Steady. I love them both. But you're totally right about his voice. You're totally right about like how it fits the music. And they're a super cool thing too. I've seen them live several times, and obviously you've heard their music. They're a band that rocks really hard. And somehow a guy who has a voice that isn't very activated, like he can't go high. He doesn't have a high register. He doesn't scream really, like I mean, he might shout a little, but it's mostly talk singing. But it fits so perfectly in this like head banging drums, distorted guitar, rock music. It is a perfect thing.
Yeah, I kind of like,
right, it's the sound.
I kind of like to almost call it like it's like unassuming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just kind of like it's just there, you know? Like it's not like doesn't try to take over the room or anything. It just it knows, it holds its own and knows what it's, you know, where it's supposed to be. Keeps in its lane, if you will. I don't know how to describe it better.
Absolutely. Craig Finn, whenever, you know, I've gotten the comparison to the Mountain Goats. Like, actually, it's kind of a joke of those. Like, once a show, as long as there's like more than 10 people there, someone will say I remind them of the Mountain Goats, and that's fine. But
it's like you're a free bird then.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. My summary of like the Mountain Goats influence on me was after I discovered Craig Finn and the Hold Steady. I was like, if I had discovered the Hold Steady before I discovered the Mountain Goats, this would be a whole different operation. Like the only reason Craig Finn wasn't my biggest influence of all time was just someone got in there first.
Yeah, he didn't get there early enough. You know,
Right.
early bird, right?
Right. Exactly. Is that it? Was that the wine?
The wine isn't here, but I figured I'd grab a wine glass to make it easier when it gets here.
I keep getting pumped every time.
They told me it was going to be here at 5:30. This isn't in the place is a block from me, so I tip them very well because I'm too scared to not tip well because, like, I don't know, I think they'll kick my ass or something. But I'm not thrilled about it.
This is the Waiting for Godot of wine delivery podcast. This is perfect.
For real. The one good thing I will say is I have off tomorrow. Me and Sean have to do a little work, but I have like my day job off. So if I end up drinking a little later, that's okay tonight.
Nice. Awesome.
Yep. What kind did you get? A red, a white? Like we've talked so much about this wine already. I at least have to know what it is.
Let's look, because to be honest, I just kind of flew with what was showing up. I got one. So this is
a box of Franzia.
This is the most girly thing I've ever drank, but it's probably going to be super delicious. But I got one Barefoot Pink Moscato, but it's a 1.5 liter.
Yes, that's the big boy.
That's a double. I think that's like a double wine bottle.
Yeah, so a regular bottle of wine is a 750. So it is double a regular size bottle of wine.
So that will be enjoyable once the delivery driver decides to bring it to me.
That's awesome.
It might be if at this point.
Yeah.
He only got halfway because he cracked into your bottle of wine, and now he's in a parking lot somewhere half in the back.
It's some 17-year-old who works for Uber Eats who can't buy his own booze but can pick me up booze, and is like, oh man, I got booze in the car. Screw this. This guy's not getting it.
Like I keep seeing people order this. What's the deal?
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Yep.
So it's too funny.
Where were we?
I would say that pretty much brings us up to the only humans, I think. So that's everything. You know, you got into the Mountain Goats, and then you started writing more I would say focused music that you wanted to be a little more serious. So how did you did you have a band before the Mountain Goats besides the one you've mentioned? Was there a process there?
Yeah.
The Mountain
Okay.
Goats,
Cool.
excuse me, the Only Humans. I'm sorry.
Same thing. Same thing. So
Sean got it in my head.
the fellas that I was doing Jordash with, we were still together. We're still doing the thing. But after this kind of whole experience, and also because I was kind of not writing, like not doing like theater as much as I had been, because I was staying home. You know, theater was kind of like my serious art. So my music will be my joke art, right? I was like, let me just, since I was kind of combining things, that like I want to write a little more serious songs. And to be clear, when I say when I say a serious song, people who have the ability to add humor into songs but don't are cowards. But because there's a difference between a serious or funny song and a novelty song. I don't want to write novelty songs, but John Prine writes the funniest songs of all time, and they will still break your heart. Like that's like the difference to me. Is that guy has the confidence to write a super funny song.
Johnny Cash is like that a little bit too. He'd throw a line into one of his songs. The song is heartbreaking, and he throws a line in there that's funny but still heartbreaking. You know?
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing for me. Is like I think that you can see I diffuse situations with humor, so I do find opportunities to put into my songs. I you know going for emotion, which humor can be one. So so the fellas and I were carrying on. We discussed like probably gonna try to write some serious songs. We never wrote off the novelty songs. We're like, we'll try and write some serious songs. And it kind of like grew into like a couple other things. Like one of the things was I wasn't the singer in the group. I was one of the guitarists. I was the rhythm guitarist. So we had a rhythm guitarist, lead guitarist, and singer. And Jordan was a fantastic singer. But having seen the Mountain Goats, that was where I was like, I can have a horrible voice and I could be the singer still. And but it was I like the idea of singing my words, performing my what I wrote, and trying, like, the challenge is to get that emotion through what you write or what you think you've written into the emotion of a song, get that through in the performance. And that's the challenge, and that's why I like singing. um so like it was just kind of like a thing where like one day I kind of like we had written a few songs, serious songs, if you will. And I it was almost like a, not exactly a fed up, but kind of like a I can't continue to wait for you guys to like practice these songs, because I really want to perform. We haven't performed for at all. Jordash in the totality of our existence probably did like 3 or 4 shows total across like 4 years. So I was like, I want to start doing this. So I found an open mic, the Cantab Lounge, actually.
Very familiar with the Cantab. R.I.P.
Yeah, I know. Seriously. And I was like, hey guys, just so you know, I'm going to go do this open mic tonight. I just really want to do this. And Scott, who's the guitarist, he's like, hell yeah, let's do it. I was like, you haven't heard these songs yet. He's like, come over, we'll write a part. So I went over. He wrote lead parts for the 2 songs. Because an open mic we were going to do. Wrote the lead parts, and we did it. And we went down the whole way down. We're like, what's our band name going to be? We're talking about what our band name would be. We had like 5 different band names in like our vision. I can't remember any of them. But so we got to the open mic. Obviously, they're like, what do we announce you as? So we were just like, we just said the one we had most recently discussed, which was The Only Humans. And so that was it. And we had a good performance. I actually still have it on video. It is for the first time I've ever played these songs, serious songs, singing in front of an audience. It was pretty good in my estimation. And so, you know, Scott, he is on an acoustic guitar, but he could still shred. And so we had a fun, lively performance. So the next week we came back, and when we walked in the door, they're like, "Oh, The Only Humans." I was like, "Okay, Well, I guess that's us forever now.
Yeah, that's it now.
I guess we can't back out of that.
Right. Once you get remembered with a name, that is your name.
Right. And people have asked before, like, what does it mean? Does it mean only human, like the kind of, fallibility of a person, that you are only human and therefore you can make mistakes, or like only humans is like a post-apocalyptic thing? And I was like, I just wanted a name because I like band names where you can sort somebody out in a record store. I like band names and I don't like them to mean things. So this was a thing that I didn't think meant anything.
This is a conversation we end up having a lot because I feel like every band goes through this phase where like you don't have a name, or you're really young, or you're just joking around and that's all you think of it. So for me in high school, I was in the Cybermen, which are the bad guys in the Doctor Who series that look like trash cans. And the drummer of my band thought that was funny, so that was what we went with. We never thought about any further than that, and for like 3 years we were the Cybermen.
Well, it's such a good name because it without context, it can kind of mean nothing. Fall Out Boy is one of those biggest bands.
Yep.
And they're named after a Simpsons side character.
I didn't know that's where the name came from.
Yeah, the Simpsons have a superhero named Radioactive Man, who's their Batman, and his Robin is Fall Out Boy.
Wow.
21 Pilots has historically said that their name means nothing. They were trying to think up a name that specifically meant nothing, that had no meaning to them, so that people could ascribe whatever meaning they wanted to it, and so that they didn't have to like get tied down to anything specific, like, oh, like it means this, so we need to make sure that we're always, embodying this specific thing that our name means, right? So if it means nothing, that means you're free to do anything, right?
Yeah.
And they have a symbol that goes along with it, and people have asked like, oh, like what's that symbol? And like, same deal, right? Like it's a cool symbol that we made, right? Like,
right, exactly. Like I think bands should still do that if they want. Like where it's like, if you just want to be a band with a name that sounds cool, you're an adult singing songs on a stage. It's like there's still a degree of like childlike wonder, no matter what age you are, that has to come with performing songs about nothing to people. Even like Bob Dylan, who seems like an old grouch, he's got to have a sense of whimsy in him to be doing this still. And so like, yeah, if you want to make a silly name with a silly symbol because you literally think it's cool, that's great. That's how rock and roll, that's the history of music, is people doing things because they thought they looked cool, right?
Like the Sex Pistols. The Sex Pistols did not think that they would be a world famous band referred to as the Sex Pistols and taken seriously. They thought, what is so vulgar that people will hate us and won't be able to publish our name? The Sex Pistols. Let's go with it.
And it's funny because even that now in context, their name just sounds so inoffensive. Not because it, like, if you think about it, you're like, yuck.
So used to it.
And yeah, in general, it's just like, you're like in 6th grade social studies, and they're like, let's talk about the impact of the Sex Pistols on the British music scene. And it's like just totally just it's a known, they're known thing, right?
Yeah.
So the Only Humans, we started to form a band. We started to like get members. We got a drummer, we got a bassist and everything. We played for a few years. And we kind of grew what we were doing a little bit. And what happened was me and the other lead singer. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because I always talk about the Only Humans technically starting twice. Scott, who is the other, was the lead guitarist, started the band with me. We released one EP as the Only Humans, and then he started to develop his like passion for songwriting as well. And the issue became that we didn't really co-write songs. It wasn't Lennon and McCartney, as much as it was writing songs in isolation, learning each other's songs, and then playing 2 different styles of songs in one act.
Right.
And then kind of like having some challenges with like what are we gonna play? Because like, let's say I write short songs and I write songs fast. And his songs are maybe longer with a lot more depth and thought, but longer. But it's like, so you've written 2 songs. We play those every night. I've written like 20 songs, and we only play like a percentage of them. So are we playing percentage of songs that we've written, or and so like that became a thing, right?
Like, how do we figure this out? Yeah,
right. And it became a thing where it was just kind of like more and more we just grew apart as songwriters, right? We just kind of like we really needed to be the songwriters in our own bands, and it worked. Like if you had booked the Only Humans 2 separate times in the same night, we just switched the name and I switched over to lead guitar for his songs, and like if you had done that, we would have been fine, but we hadn't. We were trying to cram too much into one thing. And then it just became like different, like, you know, we weren't big enough to have like a like, again, like a Lennon and McCartney, like the falling out, right? It was just kind of like, it was sort of like, this isn't as fun anymore, right? We start doing it and we were having a lot of fun. It's just not as fun because we have different, we're taking this seriously, but in different ways. And we have different goals and we don't align on those goals. So we ended up deciding that, he'd leave the band because I'd done like, I came up with the name and we kind of drove the band on my style at first more. We figured that was more recognizable for me, and then he'd start his own thing. And I like, there was literally like no I hate you, like none of that. Like
that's impressive to amicably split like that.
Yeah, no, it was. I felt really bad when he left because I felt like I was really hard to work with, and I think I can be hard to work with, which is actually.
So never mind. I don't want you as a lighting tech.
No, no. When I am working for you, it's actually when expectations are set, I'm great.
Yeah.
If you tell me what to do, I'm super great at executing at your orders. When I'm given a little bit of authority, I'm out of control.
It's a creative aspect. When there's a lot of creative juices flowing, it's a lot to wrangle in sometimes.
Right. And the thing is like, I make it a goal of mine to just kind of be more clear about expectations. Whereas like, because of how much that didn't work, if anyone in the Only Humans wants to write songs, like, I don't want to say if they want to write songs, no one has to do anything with my permission, right? But
right.
If there's like an interest in songwriting or whatever, that's like, hey, Tim, I've written this song, can we play it? I've kind of like set the expectation that like, I'll produce your song end to end. I'll play every instrument on it if you want me to.
Right.
But I'll decide what gets released under the Only Humans name. And that's just it's just the expectation that I want to make sure is set, just because it's I sound like such an asshole saying this. It's not it's not because I think that I know what's best. I'm the worst musician in my band. I don't know music theory, and I'm not as good a singer as everyone else in my band. But it's terms of like this act, I've kind of curated what it's about, and so that's where I've kind of like I'll continue to kind of set that direction. Mm-hmm. And I mean it's a little different. It's definitely a different situation. Like no one in my band is currently like, I want to be the lead songwriter and singer also in the band. Like that it hasn't come up, but it would just be like it would literally be what I suggested before. It's like, cool. We practice on Tuesday. Let's say the Only Humans practice on Tuesday nights. I will join your band. We'll practice on Wednesday nights. I'll work hard, just as hard on your band, doing whatever you want to do. But when they book the show, there's 2 names and you're standing center stage and I am playing backup, versus like combining things into the Only Humans. Right.
Right.
So 2015, we're in the year 2015, and I don't want to get into the tragedies, because it sounds like everything with this band has been accompanied by a tragedy. Shortly after my father passed away, we had it was a thing where I was very very committed to wanting to continue working on what I was working on. Like I didn't want to just like I intentionally knew that I didn't want to do anything. It was like I don't want to do anything. So I made an intentional decision to like fake it till I make it. Let's keep, if we book shows, let's keep playing them. Let's keep practicing as if we're going to play these shows. Because for me, I knew that if I stopped, I would never start again.
Right. Yeah, it's one of those kind of just have to keep moving. Like
right.
If you stay still, it becomes cement kind of thing.
Right, exactly. And like I mean, I definitely took the time for myself. I played all the way through Dragon Age 1 and 2. That was a cathartic experience. But so during that time, because everyone who I collaborate with is amazing. Like I collaborate with people I want to collaborate with, right? I've never been in the position yet to hire somebody where I'm like looking for a guitarist and it's like, here's the sheets, do what I said. Like even though I say I kind of gave the direction of the band, I look for collaborators. I look for people who are excited about doing this. I can't pay them Bruce Springsteen money yet. When I can, I absolutely will. I will pay myself last. But until I can, I need people who are excited about what we're doing.
Right.
So, because I was fortunate with everyone in the band. This was right before, just a little before Scott left. He was taking on the responsibilities to book all the shows, to do all the stuff. And really, it was so cool to have him like just like fill in where I couldn't at the time. And I loved him for that. But one of the things that he booked us for, have you ever heard? This is my favorite story of all time. Have you ever heard of the Claddagh in Boston? Or in Lawrence, Massachusetts, the Claddagh.
The Claddagh, way up in Lawrence.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a big box of a building, and there's a giant parking lot in front of it. And if you're there after like 11:30 at night on a Saturday, you might get stabbed.
Yes, correct. That is exactly what the Claddagh is. For all those who are listening, you're about to hear the pop of a wine bottle.
No, he's muted. You won't hear the pop.
Oh. All right, he's unmuted himself. I'm gonna let
just
this
for the
happen.
pop. I don't know if I know how to open this properly.
Oh, this is a treat.
Right now, I'm for those who have the CD version, he's got it. He's got the cork in his teeth right now, and he's holding the bottle with his feet like some kind of 21st century chimpanzee. And it looks like it looks like he's got it. Blood is spurting from his mouth and his ears right now, but he is not letting go. I've never seen anything like it. This is if opening a wine bottle was an Olympic event, they'd have to get rid of the silver and gold because this man is going to take them all home. And he got it. He got it. Yes.
Straight platinum right there.
Michael O'Donnell and it's shooting all over the room right now. This guy is covered in pink wine. It is beautiful, but it is majestic. If you've ever seen, those of you who have been fortunate enough to see Old Faithful, this is what God was thinking of when he made Old Faithful, was Michael O'Donnell opening up
was beautiful.
A wine bottle.
Was it worth it?
Was it worth the wait? 2-hour wait, but it's tasty, so whatever.
So if you're listening, Barefoot, call us.
If you're listening, Uber Eats, get the fuck out of here, because your drivers have screwed me up like 2 podcasts in a row here.
For the record, I'm not a drinker. I don't drink. But I will write your copy. I'll write the Barefoot commercial for them. I would like Barefoot. Was it Pink Moscato?
Moscato.
I'd like them to be the official wine of the Only Humans.
At this point, I don't know if the podcast is going to help you. I've shit on a number of companies and bands at this point. So none that matter, like, the All American Rejects. But at this point, I don't know if that's going to help.
Okay, but we're about to get another one. So 2015, Scott has taken the reins while I am dealing with some personal stuff. And he gets us a few shows. One of the shows he gets us is the dictionary definition of pay to play. We're a new band. We don't know all the ropes, right? We're new. This is something that we're not sure what it is. We just know that we got to sell some tickets. And if we sell tickets, you better You get stars in your eyes when you realize that you are going to be one of 30 bands opening for Buck Cherry. So
Woo!
when the booker comes calling, you answer, right?
I might have been at that show. Was that a WFNX show? I might have worked that show.
I don't know. Maybe. I forget.
We should get them on a stream. I forgot they existed.
Yeah, seriously. No, we were looking. You probably could. We looked at their tour itinerary, and it was like, the Westwind, Wisconsin high school, walk for lupus, and then the Clatta in Lawrence, Massachusetts. Like,
can they even play their hit at the Walk for Lupus? Do they just censor the main?
Hey, you're a wild woman.
No, there was one of the things they were definitely playing, like a high school and then like a bike rally, but not like a motorcycle bike rally,
like a bicycle rally.
A bicycle rally. So
you're at the Clatta.
So we're at the Clattis. We agree to do this show. It gets agreed to, of course, because I'm not doing any of this work. What I learn as I start picking up the slack that I had let go was we've got to sell these tickets. We had to sell something like 20 tickets at $30 a piece to play for 20 minutes. Now, it was a great experience for me because I learned the type of musician I want to be. And it was a type of musician that's not going to trade in the trust or the goodwill that I have earned from people who do like me, people who, if I had just asked, would have paid $30.
Yep.
I am not going to ask anyone to do that. I knew that in my heart and my soul, and I couldn't bring anyone to buy any tickets. Like I said I would. I was like, yeah, I'll help out. And I didn't. Every time I went to talk to somebody, every time I talked to somebody, I qualified it a million times. I said, if you want to see this, it's going to be bad. It's going to be all metal bands and us. It's going to suck. It's Buck Cherry. It's even worse. But if you have nothing to do in $30, you can do this. But I couldn't do it. So, there was a lot of back and forth in there. The booker would call us with angry things like I'm going to hold you to paying for those tickets. And I'm like, sure. Can I see the contract we signed that said we would sell these tickets for you? And be like, well, just do what you can. That'll be fine.
Yeah, we'll take $100.
So we sold probably a couple tickets. So there's contention around this show. There's the implication that I wasn't taking the future of the band seriously by not pushing it. So
just to relate to that a little bit, I think it's interesting that you felt that way because Sean and I sort of had a conscious decision when we started this to feel that way ourselves. We have a lot of friends that are in bands that we could just have play. My mom does watch every show, but like I could just get my friends and family to watch, but we wanted it to be a real independent thing. So we tried to do as much as we could of like, people don't know who we are. They will once the podcast is out, but people don't know who Sean and I are. They know Boston Stream Party as a venue. So we tried to make it as natural as we could in terms of not forcing people that we knew would do us a favor to tune in. We wanted it to be like, no, you want to watch a show or you're interested in local music or XYZ is the reason why you're watching. Maybe my mom watches because I, am involved in it, but that's, otherwise we try to make it pretty natural, I think.
Yeah.
And that anonymity when we get famous after this podcast goes live.
Yeah. I love that too. And it's important too, I think, to me, because it's like I don't like stacking in the deck because it doesn't allow me to understand what I could be doing better.
I just worry with stacking the deck or in that respect is that in the future you end up like people are like, oh, this is going really good. And then they find out that it's kind of fake. They're like, oh no, the people going to every show are all of his cousins or they're not, I don't know. They find out something about it and it ends up hurting you worse than it would have if you just didn't do it in the first place.
Right. Like I will absolutely trade in on Obligation Rock, which is a term. I'm not sure if my friend from the Soul Shop, Elio, coined it, but he always calls it obligation rock. Where like my friends from work will be like, guys, come see the show. I'll absolutely trade in on that for like release shows because I want to pump up some numbers there to make it seem like a bigger deal. But I know those numbers will be added to by other things, right? But like on the normal shows, the Wednesday night shows, whatever, I'm not like, even if I get people to, and I have friends who do come see us because they like to see us, but I don't say, can you come see us? I put it on Facebook, I put it on Instagram. If they come, I love them for it.
Right.
But I try not to do that. So I wouldn't do it for this show. I would, especially when ask, no one's ever paid $30 to see me. I'm not going to ask them to pay $30 to see me for 20 minutes. The result was Scott said, this is going to be my last show with the band. So we're like, okay, cool. Because I didn't really want to do the show, I said, why don't we do all your songs, Scott? Celebrate you leaving. We did. It was fine.
That's cool. That's like a really that's a polite way to kind of end a relationship, so to speak. Not a relationship, but a working relationship.
Right. Well, I mean, and to be fair, when we played Scott's songs, it was a 4-piece at the time. It sounded cool. It sounded great. And I didn't think he was going to be working with the other guys when he left the band. So it's like, will he have a band to play with? Let's get, I definitely wasn't going to be playing his lead guitar for him just because at that point I was very focused on what I was doing. So I was like, I won't.
How upset would you have been if like the label rep who represents Buck Cherry was there that night and was like, hey, we heard your music. It's amazing. And then just signed Scott away from you. You're like, oh, if I only could have played my songs. Would that have been upsetting? Would you have been okay?
If the label rep from Buck Cherry?
Yeah, whoever.
I think Tim would have been okay in that situation.
But to answer the spirit of your question rather than the exact wording, because I don't give a shit about the label Buck Cherry because they clearly aren't doing it right. But the spirit
is there now. Keep going.
It's just them and Nickelback. That's the whole label, Buck Cherry and Nickelback.
I got thoughts on Nickelback, and I think that we should all be more forgiving of Nickelback, but I will get into that. No, to answer your question, no, because I actually have thought about that, and it was the same reason why I moved away from acting rather than writing, was because, I mean, sure, if you asked me if I wanted to star in Saving Private Ryan today and I'd get that money and that fame, I would absolutely say yes. But in terms of what I want to be doing, I would not want to be playing backup to like Scott or anyone. I want to be writing my songs. Mm-hmm. And like I'd be okay because if a label rep said I want you, they wouldn't to Scott and his songs. Yeah. They wouldn't have said it to me because it was just too different.
For the record, they were on Atlantic for a while, so it's a real label.
Atlantic has signed a lot of bad people. They've signed a lot of people over the years. You're bound to make some errors.
Guys, I just wanted to say real quick, just because I have to, at 8:00, I do have to go to a Chick-fil-A in Woburn to drop off a snowboard my mom sold on eBay.
I love this story already.
So I just
where's the Chick-fil-A in Woburn? I'm from Woburn.
I don't know. I'm gonna find that out tonight.
All right, well, good luck.
We'll tell him.
Good luck. I don't know where that is.
So quick side anecdote. Our new album that we're working on right now is called "It's a Beautiful Night. I Think I'll Disappear Forever," and it addresses feelings of like coming out of like something, a bad relationship, a bad feeling, whatever, and just seeing like, stepping off a train, stepping out of your car and being like, I don't want this to be my life anymore, and just disappearing. That's where the title comes from.
It's a great name.
I was talking to my band and I was like, so it's a nice day out today and I'm going to go deliver a snowboard to a man in a Chick-fil-A parking lot in Woburn. I think I'm going to name this night "It's a Beautiful Night. I think I'll disappear forever."
That's
We-
hilarious.
Well, you can't disappear forever because you have a show to play.
which I will be playing at least 10 out of the 12 songs from the new album, which I'm so excited about because
Awesome.
I've played one of these songs, maybe two of them live before. So I'll be using lyric sheets and everything, but it'll be fine. I'm so excited about this.
It's been really cool to us. A lot of artists have chosen to make this like either a feedback platform or a release platform, however you want to view it. And it's been really satisfying to see that because they can get, you get real personal feedback when you're in the low numbers and everyone is intently paying attention. They wouldn't be watching if they weren't intently paying attention.
Right, absolutely. Which I'm so excited for this show. We're almost to the genesis of the Only Human, so I just want to get us there real quick because you asked this question, and it's my favorite story to tell. So we were asked to play. You've heard of the Lowell Folk Festival, probably, right?
Yep.
Well, this bar in Lowell, a bar that I love called the Worthing House, does what they call the Worthing Folk Festival, which is
I know the Worthing well.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So the Worthing does the Worthing Folk Festival, which takes place the same weekend as Lowell Folk Festival. Happens in their parking lot. And it's just another thing. I guess they can't brand it because it's a branded thing. It's another thing though. You're walking around Lowell. You walk from the main stage. You get over to the Woburn Street, and you can come see a different kind of show.
Yep.
We got asked. We had started to play in Lowell that year, so we made some friends and like, hey, you want to play this? You guys are cool. Scott leaves the band. And it was going to be the biggest audience we've ever played for. Like by the time we were going to play, I think we were the first band on, but by the time we were going to play, there were going to be like 100 to 200 people there. Just because people filter in.
Yeah.
So my coworker at Market Basket at the time, who's also my best friend in the world, Renee, she plays violin, and she has her whole life. And I knew that about her. And I'd asked her a few times while, the Only Humans was a different thing. I was like, do you want to write some string parts from some of our songs to like play under it? And she had, but we never connected on that. So we had gotten the habit of going to trivia nights and Drake it. It was a thing where like I was in between friend groups, sort of. So I started to go out with my work friend Renee. Come to trivia, and you can make some new friends. Okay, let's do that. So Renee I said, Renee, Tim's in a jam. I got to play a show and I need a lead instrument. I've got a bassist, I got a drummer, but I need someone to play lead parts because our songs sound empty. I wasn't prepared at that time to not have lead parts. And she's like, yeah, okay. And she agreed to do it right away. Which was miraculous. And I heard her play and I was blown away because I was like, you've written all these parts like I asked or like we talked about, but these are amazing parts. Why have I wasted my life not having you play the violin? So we'd go into trivia nights, and it was just a group of Renee's school friends or something. And everyone was talking. I was like the new weirdo, right? That got dragged along because he didn't have anywhere else to be. And so I got to know Renee's friends, and they're like, oh, you're in the band. Renee's playing. That's cool. And somebody goes, Neil plays violin too, right? Do you need Neil to play? And I was like, so Neil was just one of the guys at the table. And I was like, do you want to play with us? I'll take another lead instrument. And he goes, yeah, I can do that. And the moment I knew that I wanted Neil to be in my band forever was, we were doing trivia and about 30 minutes after we agreed he would join us for the Lowell Folk Festival. We continued the trivia. He's just like writing on the trivia pad and he's like, Tim, I want to talk to you about the direction of the band. Like, yeah. And he goes, ever since I joined, I feel like we haven't practiced once. He's like, I don't think you're taking this seriously. And it was my favorite thing ever.
That's great.
We played the Worthing, and we all clicked really well. So my build-up story has a lot of parts because it was like the rock and roll story, right? After Renee and Neil joined, that became like what the band should have always have been. So whenever everyone's like, when did you start the band? I'm like, technically 2011, but really 2015, because we play a couple of songs that we used to play when the band was in its old configuration, but they all sound totally different, and they're leaps and bounds of what they used to be. And no disrespect to anyone who ever played with us, but just Neil and Renee, their contributions. Neil is an amazing violin player. He took over lead violin. Renee plays like second violin, or she plays bass most of the time. Neil is an amazing out of this world violinist, and Renee, when we were recording our first record, Elio, who recorded us, Elio DeLuca from the Soul Shop, said it better than anyone, where she sang a line for a backup vocal or something, and he goes, "Hey, on that third word, you were a little flat." And then she sang the line again perfectly, but raising the pitch on the third word like a robot. And he's like, Elio's like, I've never met anyone who can just hear and correct it like that. Right. Renee's as a singer is out of this world. So that's kind of what I've stuck with as like the main configuration of the band is Neil on violin, Renee on bass, and Renee on backup vocals. And that's what really gives us our sound.
It's like she just taken a slider and moved it up a little bit.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It's like Melodyne or something, right?
I'm curious, when Neil and Renee joined for like that first gig as you, were those parts that they played, like the lead parts, were those written by you, or did they kind of just jump in and throw in their aspect of what they thought the melody or the lead should sound like?
That's a great question. So it's a little bit of everything. For a couple of the songs, we kind of we kind of took transformations of the lead parts Scott had written, which were based on lead, like where I was like, here's what the lead part should sound like, and I gave like a rough sketch. Scott took those, embellished on them. Neil took those, or Renee took those and embellished on them. Or some of them we were just kind of like, I was never happy with what we came up with. We were still working on the song. And definitely, when you hear us play, it is definitely a quality of Neil and Renee, both of them, when they write violin parts, that like almost instantly, like even if they've never heard the song, they can play it. I mean, at this point, they kind of know my style, 3 chords, right? But they can just play lead parts. There's several of the parts on our album. Lead parts on our album are going to come from come from like phone demos, like not the actual parts, but the parts that Neil plays or Renee plays on the violin come from phone demos where we were just messing around with a new song and I heard something I kind of liked, and we get into it a little bit where like Neil will be like, yeah, I'm gonna write a part for this, because Neil's an actual composer. Like we actually have like full string sections just played by him and Renee, but full string sections. And he's like, I'll write a good part for this. And I'm like, no, what you did the second you picked up a violin and we recorded on my phone, I want that, because it's so cool, because it's like, it goes back to that spontaneity we talked about, just that automatic magic that happens right away.
We spoke with a band who, when they were founded, the lead singer was deployed as a Green Beret in Africa.
Wow.
And the way they started writing songs, they had played together before, but the way they started writing songs as the band was he was writing in like code, essentially musical code. So like using a keyboard and doing like, L and R would be like the first and the third or whatever. And he would record things in that form, send them back to his bandmates who are here in America, who would like make them into music. And that was how they started writing. Like their first several singles that are kind of big were all originally written that way, and that was how they were communicating. It's just interesting to me to see the different ways that these artists can communicate with each other.
That's insane. That's crazy. That's so cool.
Yep, and they said it's like it was Kevin McCord of Weed Man Parachutes. He said it was like it was no big deal. Like, we just sent back the musical coding. And I was like, dude, I don't even know what that means, and I've played music for years. But like their songs are unbelievable. And he was like, yeah, I had these ideas and that was how I could get them down. I didn't have an instrument, but I had I had access to a computer or whatever.
That's crazy. So cool. I love, that is my mode most of the time in the band, because whenever they start talking about the music, I'm like, I don't even know what that means. I'm going to go get some fruit roll-ups while you guys figure out how to make this sound good.
That's how I've always been. I learned to play guitar by ear, and I took some lessons, but was never really trained. So like I
Right.
can jump in and play a jam session, but if you start talking about complicated stuff, I'm out.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I'll go have a beer. You
That's
guys figure out what you want to do, and I'll come back in. Let me know what key it's in. We'll be good.
that is basically my rule about everything. You want to start talking about complicated stuff? I'm gonna go get a beer. I'll be back. Like, let me know when we got a direction. Once you guys have figured out everything you want to figure out.
Yeah, no, and but it's again, it's so important because I talked a little bit about how I'm like the songs we're gonna perform in this band are the songs that Tim Howard has written, or at least written the bass of, but like, as for bringing the songs alive, one of the decisions I haven't quite decided on yet is the first song on our album I wrote on purpose to be like almost like a church choir song. It's like under 2 minutes, and it's like a church choir. It's supposed to be like this kind of like uplifting song about just being dead inside. And I literally just went to Neil and I was like, can you write the vocal parts? Like, this is like something that I would see on PBS after some national disaster, like just a choir, right? Like one of those things doing
I need a hymnal.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And and he goes, oh, SATB, right? And I was like,
you what,
south
mate?
of the border? What? and apparently that stands for soprano, alto, tenor, and bass, which is the name of like a configuration of a choir or whatever.
That is the name of a typical configuration of a choir. They have subcategories within there, but yes.
Right. So yeah, exactly. That was me. That was me, Mike.
Yep.
I was like, okay. But so he wrote the part. He did a demo of it. We're actually later on this year, we're going to launch a Patreon, and one of the things we're going to be sending out for as like one of our monthly releases is going to be Neil has this fantastic demo of him doing every part, including like the falsetto high harmonies. And it's just going to be called, the song is "My Body is Full of Invaders," and it's just going to be called All Neils, because it's so good. But he wrote this part. He wrote this amazing part, and like I said, the decision I haven't decided on yet is the people who are producing my record, who are just like my friends, and also like my keyboardist Corey. He's the keyboardist in the band, but he's also acting as a producer, and his girlfriend too. Is like they're like co-producing it. They're helping us all the arrangements. They're adding in other parts and everything.
That COVID style, I like that. That quarantine style.
Yeah,
exactly. So they just Victoria is another like classically trained singer. Corey's got a astounding music background. So they're just like, we'll do the foundation of the song. We'll sing all the parts. We'll sing them. Then Neil, like wherever Neil can record, he'll record his parts. Where Renee can record, she'll record her parts. They're all amazing singers. And I'm like, I think this song might be better aesthetically from like a concept standpoint, and also from a like how music sounds standpoint. If I don't sing on this song, maybe I shouldn't. I'm still deciding on that, but I'm kind of like, maybe we'll have our first song on the album not have me at all.
That'd be pretty cool. It'd be different.
Right. And I think that it's because I want to like, I chose to not call my act Tim Howard for two reasons. One, that's not catchy. It's not sexy. Tim Howard is not sexy. It is not a fun, sexy name. But the other is because I always wanted to be able to execute a song for what the song needs to be. And most of the time, I think the song needs to be me screaming, like slamming on an acoustic guitar and like how I sing. But if it doesn't, I don't want the song to be limited by the fact that this is like the Tim Howard act. I want it to be a band, and right. I'm like, this might be the like one of our first like opening follies of like, this is not just me. It is
some breathing room within the band almost.
Right, exactly. Sorry, I just have to say we are like 16 minutes away, and I didn't even add, like, I don't know if you guys have an intro. I don't know if I got to answer any questions. I just rambled forever, and it was so much fun because I love talking to you guys. You guys are just so welcoming. But I want to make sure we get what you actually need for this podcast.
Yeah,
like,
so we'll do an intro later. It'll just be one of us introducing you before it starts, and then we'll cut into it with a cold open. So the big thing is, we'll drop all your links and stuff in the YouTube video when we put it up there on the 17th. Is there anything that you want to get out there?
Now that we listened to you talk for a while, is there anything you want to talk about?
You can tell how much of an idiot I am because I was literally just about to be like, could you tell them about the show we're doing on the 20th?
We can, in fact, tell them about the show that is happening on the 20th at 8 p.m. at Boston Stream Party on Instagram.
If it's not too much trouble, could you bring that up? Could you find a space? Apart from that, so three things that I think that I want the world to know. Because I feel like if I commit to them in public, it will make it harder to back away from.
Accountability.
Right. Yes. Thank you. I would love people to know that sometime in July, I think we said whatever the Friday on before July 4th is, maybe July 2nd, is our plan to release our new record, which is called It's a Beautiful Night. I Think I'll Disappear Forever. It is I don't think I'll ever write a full-length album that does not have some kind of through line, but it is a record that, while maybe strings, I have one song at least that was written beforehand, and maybe ideas of songs have been written ahead of time, but it is exploring a time in my life when I felt, I guess, found myself having difficulty connecting with other people, or maybe a certain single person.
We can all relate to that a little bit, though.
Yeah, right.
Especially lately.
Yeah.
Well, I had written this concept before the pandemic. When the pandemic started, I was like, and we were deciding what project we want to try to execute. We took a while to actually decide on anything because we actually had hopes that we'd be able to do some stuff in the studio. And then our eyes got a little too big for our stomachs. So I kind of, in the same vein as when I was like, we're called The Only Humans, let's go. Or like in the same vein when I started the band and I was like, I'm going to an open mic tonight. I don't care if anyone's there. I was like, I'm recording an album. I don't care if anyone's there. And I just made the snap decision to do this one. And I was like, my guitars won't sound like they're in the studio. We're going to use programmed drums, which is new for us. In some instances, instead of any live drums, it's going to be a piece that's reflective of the time, but also it's reflective of the time because like so many people over this past year, I've spent so much time watching TV or reading or whatever. So a lot of these themes of like loneliness or desire to escape or whatever appear courtesy of me exploring, the character of Frankenstein's monster in the original Frankenstein movie, who was made out to be a horror movie monster. But if you watch that in the context of today, is actually a tragic figure who just gets brutalized by a bunch of people for no reason. He's brought into a world that he doesn't understand. He's not given the guidance to understand the world. And then he is murdered for not having been given the guidance to understand the world. And
a lot of victim blaming going on in there.
It totally is. It totally is. He does murder a girl. He kills a little girl in the movie, which I tactfully dance around in the song.
Yeah.
And none of my songs are like literal, like, this is what Frankenstein did today. It's none of that. But
that sounds pretty catchy. I'm just saying.
What Frankenstein did today.
Frankenstein's Day.
That'll be on the B-sides. But even when they tell the story in the 1938 context or whatever it was, they're like, here comes Frankenstein. He's killing a little girl. But even if they meant to make it seem vicious in the movie, like even if they're like, oh, people are going to faint in the aisles because he's doing this, he's literally trying to make friends with the girl. And he is connecting with her and seeing what she does, and he doesn't know his own strength. So
Right.
why do people like Lenny from Of Mice and Men, but they don't like Frankenstein from Frankenstein's monster from Frankenstein?
Lenny is like this. It's a parallel, right? Like it's the
Right.
same. It's the exact same. Where, like it's mice and then it's rabbits and then it's a woman whose soft hair is the same as a rabbit, right? Like
You have a good memory from high school, dude. I read that book, but I remember the general story, but not all the animals that he accidentally crushes.
well, Of Mice and Men is like
In
45 pages or something. I don't know what. Maybe it spoke to me.
every couple of years, I watch the Gary Sinise version. It's really good.
I've never seen it. I'll have to check that out.
But I also I grew up on a lot of Greek myths. I loved Greek myths when I was growing up. So one of the songs is told from the perspective of what's the guy's name from the Odyssey? Oh Jesus, Odysseus. What else?
Yes. Yeah, I was gonna get there, but yeah, it was not quick.
It's told from his wife's perspective, waiting for him to come home. I have
for like 15 years or something, right? Like it was forever.
It was something like, it might have been 15. Something like
it was a long
30. It was
it was a long time. It wasn't like he left for like a summer or even like a year or two. It was like he left for a lifetime.
A lifetime, literal lifetime, because his son, who was a baby when he left, was like a grown man.
Right.
And then I actually literally just called a mulligan a couple of weeks ago, maybe last week, where there's a song that wasn't working, but I was gonna do this compilation album for like a local thing. We were just gonna do like a charity compilation. I was gonna whip together a song for that. I wrote a song that I was like, oh, this is
careful now. You were about to say that song was too good to give away to charity, is what was about to come out of your mouth.
It was, but actually I didn't think of it like that.
I know that's not how you meant it, obviously, but you're like,
it was a song that was too connected to the theme of the record that we're writing. To not replace a song that was not working.
Right.
And it literally became a thing where I was like, I would rather put in two more, because the compilation is due like the end of this month. I was like, I'd rather put in a couple more weeks worth on this song and get on the album,
right?
Put another song that doesn't have the
overarching theme.
Not detracting from your own album, really.
Right.
Well, that's the other thing, is a comp album, right? So like it doesn't have to be something that fits in with some overarching theme that you're doing, unless it's something like Pop Goes Punk, right? Like, all right, well, the theme is that I have to make a pop song played as a punk song, right? Like it's not
right. Exactly. So I'm gonna do like I write a lot of songs, and so this is like, I love and now, just because you made me feel a little guilty because you
I didn't mean it. Well, no, when I said good, but I knew what you meant was theme. I knew that you meant that it would fit better on the album that you were making. I'm just a jackass.
You didn't make me feel guilty. I made me feel guilty through your words. But but no, it's just I wanted to look for something else, because I was like, it was a combination of the fact that I had a song that I literally told the band, I was like, I don't want to put this on because I want to rewrite the words, and I don't think I'll have time to do that before the schedule we've set for ourselves. Mm-hmm. And they were like, they kind of convinced me like, this is good, we should keep it. And then I wrote this song. The words came out like this. I was still in the mindset of what I was writing for the album, and I was like, oh, this probably should be on this. But anyway, that's another Greek myth inspired one, called Perseus accidentally turns everyone he loves to stone.
Very cool.
But yeah, so anyway, so like I said, the album, while dealing with, these kind of common or familiar themes of like loss, or like dealing with it's a specific kind of loss. It's confronting the fact that you have inadvertently pushed someone or someone's away by like overextending what you thought was the right thing to do. So there's a lot of like hero things on it too. There's like a King Arthur thing. because I grew up reading those books, watching those movies. I love these stories, and now that I'm a little more old, I like to re-explore them and be like, yeah, maybe the Once and Future King doesn't tell us outright what King Arthur is going through, but he, he's going through some stuff. Like this was these books, these movies were made by adults. Even if they made them for kids, they're told from adult context. So even if he leaves out, this is like that King Arthur was bipolar or whatever. I'm just making that up. But even if you leave something out like that, it comes through in the writing. So these are the things I'm starting to discover at this age.
It was actually multiple personality syndrome. He actually was also Lancelot. It was really conflicting.
Wow.
That's not
I
true.
love that. Yeah, I know, but I love that idea.
Yeah.
That's such a cool idea because it's not, it's his wife, but it's also a handsome, young, it's a version of himself when he was younger. Wow.
And I am not stealing, but I am borrowing that idea a little bit from Fight Club, since there's that whole, I won't spoil Fight Club for anyone who hasn't watched in the last 20 years, but there is that whole dichotomy of like, there's this other man who's, bigger and stronger and more handsome that's stealing my woman kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Sixth Sense.
Well, Tim, thank you so much. It's about time here, I think, for you to get going.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it. We are stoked about the performance this weekend and the album. July 2nd, I believe, is that Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Yes. Two other things, if I could say real quick.
Absolutely.
100%.
If everyone, I'm going to start doing an email newsletter. We have an email list. I'm going to start doing it in earnest. It would be cool. That'd be a great way to find out more about us if you want to sign up. And then we're planning to launch a Patreon sometime this year, which I think will be a fantastic project for this band specifically because, as you just heard, I have a tendency to get distracted when I'm working on what the album should be. And my band has like thrown like the lashes around my wrist and like, Tim, come work on this. And I'm like, guys, I've written 10 new songs and I've had a new idea and it's going to be an 80s themed album, which is actually true. But I write
they just
songs.
Hug you and pull you in towards finishing something that they're working on.
Exactly. So because I write with the kind of fury that I write, and not everything should fits into the theme. I just sometimes write songs. I'm super excited about the Patreon that we're going to launch because we're going to try once a month to release either maybe a demo or like or like an alternate version of an unreleased song. This is super important because we're going to get Renee singing leads on some of alternate versions.
Cool.
And then a lot of just songs I've never written and I have no plans for. So the Patreon is going to be coming out, which you can find out through the email list, which we're about to start using in earnest. And most of all, I know you'll put up our socials, but like keep an eye out for the album because it's going to be a big project and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Shoot us after we get off here, shoot us the link for the to sign up for the email list, and we will make sure that we put it down in the description for the YouTube video. If you end up listening to this in some other medium, go find our YouTube and find the link there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And guys, thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun. I've done a couple podcasts, but like, God, I literally just said this is so much fun. And I'm super cognizant of the fact that you just watched me talk for 2 hours.
That's what this is for. That's the reason why we do this, because people nowadays especially want to hear creative process. People they're missing this. So that's why we're doing it. So this is perfect.
Well, thank you. I came here because I was like, I want to learn about Sean and Mike. And I was like, oh, they asked a story. I got to tell them about. Last anecdote, because you guys have to hear this one, because I'm bringing this podcast full circle right now. Because at the beginning of this podcast, for those of you just joining us, I don't know if people join In Progress podcasts.
Last 5 minutes.
When they
skipped ahead. I got to see what's going on at the end. See if it's worth listening to everything in the middle.
For those of you who skipped to the end and want to see what you missed earlier, Mike talked to us about an experience of helping the All-American Rejects. So if you somehow graciously skip past that and forgot that he bashed the All-American Rejects, I'm bringing that back up. I also told you one of the formative experiences of this band was when we opened for Buck Cherry, and it shattered, it destroyed us, and we had to start all over again. We had to pick up the pieces. my favorite thing of all time. And in addition to what I mentioned before about how I'll never be the artist um, who, basically says it's good for my career if you come and give me $30 to because Buck Cherry can't sell tickets on their own, so they're getting the 20 metal bands in us opening for them to do this. In addition to that artist, the other artist I will never be, it was supposed to be a parking lot show because, as you mentioned, Sean, Colada's got a huge parking lot. But because it was a rainy day, they're having inside the Colada set up for that. They got an upstairs and downstairs, swapping stages all day. So while downstairs is playing, upstairs is setting up for the next show. I super cool. I think I have it in my scrapbook because I scrapbook, everybody. I do scrapbook. I have a tweet that John.
Where does he find the time?
I have a tweet. I actually haven't for several years, but I have a box of things that will get added to my scrapbook, including a tweet from John Darnielle from the Mountain Goats where he added Tim Howard on Twitter. Don't follow Tim Howard at The Only Humans on Twitter. Anyway, so I got a VIP bracelet. The band got the band bracelet, right? I got to stand in the backstage band area with the complimentary French fries that we had to pay for. But it was cool because I got to walk through the crowd, be like, boom, and go to a different place. My favorite and least favorite thing that ever happened in my life, like literally when I am old and I can't remember my kids or my wife's name or anything, I'll remember this moment because it was so perfect. A security guard who was so nice and so accommodating to everybody and was doing her best to protect the acts, because that's what security guards do and are there for, and to protect the integrity of the show, said to a gentleman who did not have a VIP bracelet, who was walking through the area, "Excuse me, sir, you need a VIP bracelet to walk through this area." To which he responded in the most disdainful, disgusted way I've ever heard a human talk to another human. I'm in Buck Cherry. And then he continued to walk as if this middle-aged woman would know by heart what the third bassist from Buck Cherry looks like, as if anybody would know on site with any member of Buck Cherry would ever look like. I don't care that you didn't want to wear a bracelet and you could say, "I'm sorry, I don't have to wear a bracelet. The tour manager told me I don't have to wear a bracelet because I am the main act. We are the ones who are bringing this show. Can you ask someone because I'm in the band?" But to assume that anyone knows who you are, if you're Paul Simon, you can walk by. Okay, if you're Beyonce, you can walk by. But if you're the bass player for Buck Cherry, to assume that anyone in Lawrence, Massachusetts is going to know you on site and be like, "My liege," I was blown away. It was such a formative experience for me, maybe even more than the Mountain Goats, because I was like, wow, I might never make as much money as Buck Cherry, but I will die never having been that guy. And thank God for that.
So speaking of knowing people, and you mentioned earlier that you didn't get a chance to, learn as much about us as you would like to. That just means that I think that you'll have to tune into our other podcasts, because there'll be plenty of us to go around for all of the other episodes of the podcast. So we will see you watching our next one, Tim, and hopefully we'll see you at home doing the same.
Yes, excellent. Awesome. Thank you so much. And guys, thank you so much for having me. This is a blast. This is a real honest to goodness blast. I cannot wait for the show next week. It is going to be, and you'll get to meet at least Neil, and hopefully Renee, because honestly, the practice part again has been a thing that is just not worked out. So, but we were going to try to get at least that configuration going. And I'm really excited for it. So I think it's going to be fun. You'll get to hear all brand new songs. First time ever that anyone in the world has heard these, except for people who happen to be up at midnight sometimes. I'm like, "Can you listen to this demo and tell me if I should delete this song right now?"
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you guys again.
That is Saturday the 20th at 8 p.m. at Boston Stream Party on Instagram is that show.
Yes, absolutely. Guys, thank you so much. Thank you again for having me. I cannot thank you enough. This is such a joy, such a delight.
Good
I'm
luck
glad
at
you got your
Chick-fil-A.
wine.
I hope you don't get murdered at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, that would be so cool. Like, no, it wouldn't be cool.
Your bandmates could write a great album about it, probably.
Right. No, like when they do the 2020 special about me, you guys would be famous because you'd be like, we just talked to him.
The last interview.
Yeah. He made a joke about it, and then it happened.
The last interview on the left. That's the name of the straight to TV movie about your life, the life and times.
Yeah.
Well, as you can see, there's some drama in there, so we'd be able to get it. Would be able to stretch it to an hour and a half with commercials, or 2 hours of commercials, right?
Awesome,
guys. Thank you again. Have a wonderful night. I'll talk to you soon.
You as well.
Good talking to you, Tim.